Praise and glory be to God, the all-knowing, the wise, and peace and blessings be upon His noble prophets and messengers. Welcome back to another episode of your show, Beloved Acquaintances. And today's show is going to be a bit different. Normally, we dedicate the episode to a single companion. We introduce you to him, we tell you how the person came to Islam, and then we go over some of the major encounters they had with the Prophet, peace be upon him. But let me ask you all a question. How are your families doing? I know a lot of people watching this show are families, and our religion places a great deal of emphasis on the family unit. It's the building block of a society. And so I wanted to take this show and talk to you about a family. Talk to you about individuals that make up a family. And the family we're going to talk about is one living in Mecca at the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And it's made up of 3 people: a father, a mother, and their son. The father, Yasser, is an old man, a simple man, poor, weak, and owns absolutely nothing. The mother, Sumaya, is poor, doesn't own anything, is extremely thin, she's old, over 60 years of age, and she's enslaved to the clan Abu Jahl belongs to. You guys have heard of Abu Jahl? A horrible man, perhaps the Prophet's biggest enemy in Mecca. The son, Amar, poor, owns nothing, and is also a slave to the same clan. What do you guys think of this family? How important do you think this family is in the world we live in? Not very important, eh? In fact, worthless. Eternity could have passed, and this family would have never shown up on the radar of history, not even as a speck of dust. In this world, they're worth nothing. But on the scale of the afterlife, how heavy is this family? This family is very valuable in the eyes of God. This family is really, really important to the Almighty. Take a moment and think about the following questions. How important is your family in this world? Is your family a big family? Big name? Popular? Rich, maybe? Now, how important will your family's name be in the afterlife? Is your family valuable in the eyes of God? Or are your objectives simply to make your family shine in this world? I think you'll have to agree with me, people. Investing in a family name that will make us stand out in the next life is far more important. So how do we build a name for our families in the afterlife? Simple. Follow what God has asked of us as a family, and your name will grow. Can I give you some suggestions? Picture this. A woman waking her husband up in the middle of the night and telling him, "Let's pray a bit, me and you, together." Alright, you guys don't want to wake up in the middle of the night? Fine. Before you sleep then, instead of watching TV for 4 hours, use 20 minutes of that time and pray with the kids. Try it out, people. The house will be filled with angels. Next time you go out as a family, take a $10 or $20 bill and drive around looking for a poor soul to give it to, together, as a family. And your name will begin to grow with God. Dedicate 15 minutes every weekend and read the Qur'an together as a family. Do something big for God as a family, people. And for those of you who aren't married yet, put these as objectives for yourself when thinking of marriage. Many homes today are suffering. Many homes are complaining. Problems have increased. Relationships are running out of love. Divorce is skyrocketing. Why? Because we ain't involving God in our homes. Because of the increase in sins in families. We want to change this picture. Let's see how the family we're going to talk about today built a big name for themselves in front of God. Let's check out what they did for us to be talking about them 1400 years later. First thing they did, they converted to Islam as a family, all on the same day. Up until this point in the history of Islam, people would convert individually. This guy converted, that lady converted, this son converted. But Yasser, Sumaya, and Ammar were the first family to fully convert together. It's a family with strong ties. You know what? They were even among the first people to convert, period. So you can consider them pioneers of the pioneers. Second thing they did to strengthen their family name with God, they were the first family to publicly announce their conversion. Very few people had advertised their acceptance of Islam in Mecca. It was close to suicide to do so. You know how much threat you'd put yourself under for doing that? Even though they were weak, even though they were worth nothing, they still did it. So you could see that the family name has climbed up the ladder quite a bit. First family to convert to Islam, first family to publicly announce their conversion, and first family to be tortured in the way of God. 3 of them beside each other. 3 of them being beaten up for their faith, side by side. And if that wasn't enough, They were the first family to all die in the way of God. 3 of them died as martyrs. And the funny thing is that the first of these martyrs was Sumaya. And not only was she the first martyr amongst the 3, get this, she was the first martyr in Islam, a woman. Hold on, time out. We all know the first convert to Islam was a woman, Khadija, the Prophet's wife. Now we learn that the first martyr in Islam was Sumaya, a woman. Is this a coincidence? Nope. This is the way God intended it. Why? To show us that women had a major role to play from the first day of Islam. Women in Islam are not meant to watch from the sidelines. They are involved in every single step of the way. So how did Sumaya die? Once she went public with her faith, Abu Jahl continued torturing her for many, many days. And all he wanted from her was one word: to reject Muhammad. And Sumaya refused to give in. She was strong, and this ticked Abu Jahl off. A weak, worthless slave was having her way over her master, until one day her strength made him feel so weak that he took his spear and rammed it right into her. And she died as she was tied up between her husband and her son. Ouch. That must be torture in itself, watching your mother or your wife die in such a horrible state right in front of your eyes and not being able to do anything about it. But don't be sad, people. We all know where she ended up. So Sumaya died a martyr. And her death has a deep meaning, an important message for us all actually. It's as if God is trying to tell us through her death how valuable this religion truly is. If a beloved companion of the Prophet was tortured to death, if people who are beloved to God went through so much pain and suffering to establish Islam, then how can we today refuse to pray? How can we find it difficult to leave a particular sin? You saw how Sumaya died. You now know what she went through. Can you possibly look her in the eyes on the Day of Judgment and tell her you found it hard to wake up for Fajr? Do you have the dignity to tell her that Islam didn't mean much to you? Sumaya is killed, and her husband, Yasir, is killed too. The only one left now is the son, Ammar. The poor fellow had to witness the murder of his mother and father. Despite the pain of having lost your parents, despite the mental stress of not having been able to do anything to save them, Amar is tortured too, but he continues to resist. But the torture gets worse and worse, day after day, until at one point, Ammar can't take it no more. Ammar, insult Muhammad! And Ammar gives up. He insults the Prophet, and he's let go. Ammar runs to the Prophet crying, and he says to him, I swear, Prophet of God, they kept torturing me until I gave in. Please forgive me. Yo, Ammar, your parents had just been murdered, and you were tortured, and that's all you're concerned about? That's the love he and the companions had for the Prophet, peace be upon him. Really, you gotta sit back and wonder how amazing of a person the Prophet must have been for the companions to love and respect him that much. He didn't say, yo, see what your religion got me into? No. Oh, Prophet of God, forgive me. So the Prophet asks Ammar, how do you find your heart? Okay, you insulted me, but what are you feeling in your heart? Ammar says, it's full of faith, O Prophet of God. It's still full of faith after what you've been through? After you've been beaten up and injured and hurt physically and emotionally, your heart is still full of faith, Ammar? What do you think of that, people? How do we compare? Does our faith in God change depending on the circumstances? God says, and among the people is he who worships Allah right on the edge. If some good happens to him, he's happy with it. But if a trial comes his way, if something bad happens to him, he reverts to disbelief. His faith plummets, and he loses both this world and the next. A person's got cash, you find him praying, no problem. But as soon as he loses it, he jumps up and says, why, God? Why did you do this to me? You know what, man? I'm not praying no more. Forget it. Not Ammar, though. His faith wasn't affected. My heart is still full of faith. So the Prophet says to him, if they ask you to insult me again, then insult me. A little glimpse of the Prophet's mercy and understanding. Somebody else would have said, what? You insulted me? Oh my God, how could you? Don't you know who I am? Nope. He simply told him to do it again. And Ammar remains a faithful follower of the Prophet in Mecca, and then when they migrate to Medina too. And then the Battle of Badr comes along, and something interesting happens during the battle. You know, the Muslims are fighting Quraysh, and it's a fierce battle, and all of a sudden, the Prophet receives some breaking news. Abu Jahl was just killed. You guys remember Abu Jahl? The man who killed Sumaya about 13 or 14 years before this battle? So the first thing the Prophet did upon hearing this was call out, "Where's Ammar?" Why are you looking for Ammar, O Prophet of God? When the Prophet sees Ammar, he says to him, "Good news, Ammar! Your mother's murderer had just been killed." Prophet of God, you still remember his parents? You still remember this family after so many years? You have the time to honor them in the middle of a fierce battle? This is prophetic loyalty, ladies and gentlemen. Peace be upon you, O Prophet of God. Now, Amar had a very special place in the Prophet's heart. He loved him a lot. And once, Khalid ibn al-Walid, after having converted to Islam, got into a heated argument with Ammar. And Khalid was no ordinary person. He was a very important character, a noble man, both before he converted to Islam and afterwards. In fact, he was known as the Sword of Allah, because simply put, he was a military mastermind. And Ammar, in comparison, was the son of slaves. So during the argument, Khalid started using some harsh words with Ammar. Now Ammar was really hurt by Khalid's words, and he began to cry. At that point, the Prophet said, "Whoever takes Ammar as an enemy, Allah takes him as an enemy. And whoever hates Ammar, Allah hates him." Khalid said, "When I heard this, nothing became dearer to me than Ammar's contentment." So Khalid ran after Ammar, and when he caught up with him, he continued to apologize until Ammar forgave him. You guys see the Prophet's justice among people? It don't matter whether you're a nobleman or rich or poor or whatever. And he was training Khalid to have the same values too. And he did it with a couple of words. Ammar died a martyr at the age of about 93 in the Battle of Siffin during the reign of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the 4th Khalifa. And Ammar had a strong feeling that he was going to die during this battle. And a couple of hours before he died, it was reported that he was happily chanting, "Today I meet the dear ones, Muhammad and his companions." Imagine, he was so excited to finally reunite with the Prophet, peace be upon him, even if it meant that he was going to die. Are you looking forward to meeting these amazing people? Are you looking forward to sitting down with the Prophet in heaven and to tell him about your life and how you were so excited to meet him? You know what though? Believe it or not, the Prophet himself is looking forward to meeting you. Meet me? Why would he want to meet me? That's what he said, people. I'm not making it up. He once told his companions, "I miss my brethren." The companion said, "Aren't we your brethren, O Prophet of God?" He said, "No, you're my companions. My brethren are those who will come after my time and will believe in me even though they haven't seen me." Man, I swear to God, I'm so anxious to meet him. That was the story of Ammar and his parents Yasser and Sumaya. God bless them all. If there's one thing to take from this episode today, it's putting an effort in building our family names with God. Come on, people, we gotta make our family names solid. If you're married, get together with your spouse and come up with a plan of action ASAP. If you're still single, then keep this point in mind when choosing your life partner. In the meantime, stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to spread the word about these beautiful, beloved acquaintances.